That might be. Yeah, so approved. Oh, yeah, I guess. Sounds like. Thanks, Sean. And Marcy. Cover me, sure. Thanks. That's what I. Hello, my friend.
I was close to it last meeting. I'm like,
Right, I always try to sit like this so that like I'm not anywhere yet. That I'm like, you do like the passenger seat thing. The person next to go back and forth.
Yeah.
All set.
I am all set.
Are you guys all set?
Yep.
You're all set, my friend? I'll call the meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. I'd ask if you stand if you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Does anyone have anything they wish to talk about that's not on tonight's agenda? Just come up to the microphone.
I may have to lower it.
That's
I
fine.
am challenged. Hi, so my name is Marilyn Bowe, and I would like to address what has become in the last couple of days a pretty intense issue. It's been an underlying issue, both positive and negative, and that is allowing parents to bring their children on the bus as a bus driver. I am a bus driver. I am a taxpayer. And I've had the experience of being a spare driver in the town of Middleborough and am currently at a lot that does allow children to be on the bus with their parents. The bus company provides the car seat. It's installed professionally by the mechanics. And I'm sorry, I think I swallowed something wrong a little bit earlier. And I know there's pros and cons to, well, what happens if you are with your child on the bus catches on fire, there's an accident. Your natural tendency as a parent is to address your child. Well, as a bus driver, I can absolutely promise you that for most bus drivers, your children become our children the moment they are on that bus from the very first day. We love them, we care for them, we sometimes cry with them. We're happy when they celebrate. Happy birthday, Merry Christmas. Their joy is our joy. Their uneasiness, as parents, we step in, or as bus drivers, we step in and try to help your children to be comfortable. We're the first person they see in the morning. We're the last person they see before they see you. They want to hug us. Rules say they can't, but it's not for not wanting to. We want to hug them back. We become a little bit of a family with your children when they're on that bus with us. And let's be honest, sometimes we know things about your households that we shouldn't, right? But that's because it's a relationship that's built on trust. And they know that they can trust us. They know that we're going to be faithful to them, faithful to you as a family, faithful to the school district, to our employer, to the state, and I am a patriotic person, to this nation. So when and if I am allowed to have my children or my grandchildren on the bus, yes, instinctively, I'm going to want to protect that child. But I'm going to want to protect all of your children just as much. Right now, we are living in unprecedented times. There is a driver's shortage that has never been seen before. Last year, I don't even know how some of us made it through last year, but it was because we all worked as a team, right? Our bus company worked with the school committee, worked with the schools, worked with the principals, worked with the parents, worked with the children. The children understood, listen, I'm picking up 3 different routes so that you can all get to school, so that you can all have an education. We all lived it, thank God. We all lived through it. Some of us have lost people because of the pandemic. Some of us are not as healthy as we were before. Some are even healthier because we decided to take our health in our own hands, right? Here's the pandemic, we survived it, let's charge forward. But the bottom line is that we have survived this, but we are living in the reality of a driver shortage that is also an epidemic. If a driver leaves, it impacts every single person in the community, everyone. And one spare can do the job of several drivers. One experienced driver is probably going to do the job of 2 or 3 drivers. You don't want to lose a driver. And Middleborough right now has lost a few drivers. And there is a parent in your community that wants to bring her child on the bus. There are men that are now joining the workforce of being school drivers because their wife has now become the main breadwinner. Guess what? It's not a woman issue either. It's not a mommy issue. Dads are going to need to bring their children on the buses too. And we're a traditional community. We look at the men as the breadwinner, no matter whether you agree with it or don't. But now, because of this pandemic, women have stepped into the role of being the main breadwinner. So now the dad is going to look for a job that's going to try to provide for his family and may need to bring a child themselves on the bus. It's a child that isn't going to take away from a bus driver's job. It's going to allow this community to not continue to lose drivers, because it's not only our children, but it's our grandchildren that we're going to need to bring on a bus. We love our jobs. You know, there's been a lot of stigma around a bus driver job. You know what? We work hard. We're up early. It doesn't matter what the weather is, we show up to work. We're in the rain. We're driving through a hurricane until they pull us off the road, and we get your children home safe. Middleborough has had the number 1 position, number 2 position, and number 5 in the entire country. We can also be very proud that our Little League just went to represent us, right? That's a united community. That's just not a bunch of kids playing baseball together, but it's because we all work as a team. So give us, the bus drivers, the opportunity to continue to serve you. And I do say that as a law-abiding American citizen, not only as a bus driver. Let us continue to serve you. Your firefighters serve you. Your police officers serve you. Let us continue to serve you. Don't write it off as it's just an unsafe thing. There are many communities that surround Middleborough that allow children on the bus with their parents and grandparents. You are going to lose drivers to those communities. Some are offering up to $7,500 sign-on bonuses. The MBTA, depending on the position, is a $10,000 bonus. And we want to stay here. That's dedication. That's commitment. Just please consider that loyalty coming from us to serve you and your families. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other public comment? Seeing none, I will move on. Next item on our agenda is reports from school committee members. I do have one thing that I want to bring up. I also serve on the Council on Aging, and Saturday, September 10th from 12 to 3 at the Council on Aging will be their second annual Classic Cruise Day. There's a lot going on that day. It was a big turnout last year, so if anyone's available, I would say please stop down. A great selection of cars over that period in time. Anyone else have anything? Thank you. Nate, I'll go to you next because I know you have to have other duties. So Nate, go right ahead.
Okay, so first for the MEC, there's not much except opening the school, and it's been exciting to have the staff, students, and families in the building and getting back into the normal routines. So for the MKG, they're excited to be back learning, and it was a great first day, and I want to say thank you for your patience with the changes and updates with transportation. There's an open house. It's Thursday, September 29th, and then there was more information sent out about it later or earlier. For the HPB, they said it was great to see all the smiling faces, and kids have settled in nicely, and they want to say thank you to all the volunteers who came in at the first couple of days to make sure the kids could find their classes, and also a huge thank you to the PTA for all the hard work freshening up the teacher's break room. And then for the Nichols Middle School, Nichols would like to welcome Miss Jen Giavoni and Mr. Jason Carroll as our 2 new assistant principals. 6th grade open house was held on Monday, August 29th. Students and families met with their administrative team for an overview of middle school and also went to meet their 6th grade team of teachers. Nichols Middle School administrative team has held an assembly with 6th and 7th graders to review what it means to be a Tiger. And the 8th graders will have this assembly on Friday morning. And Nichols Middle School PTA meeting will be held on Monday, September 12th from 6 to 7 p.m. Now for the MHS, congratulations to all the students who participated in the Summer Credit Recovery Program. And then I want to say thank you to all of the students who volunteered in the Fine Arts Camp this summer. It was great to hear all the music, singing, and acting going on. Thank you to the tremendous amount of students who participated in the Summer Conditioning Program for sports. Well done to all the seniors that went through boot camp. Everyone's hard work is truly paying off. And big congratulations to the 200 plus members of the student body who served as orientation leaders for the Start Strong program. The class of 2026 was tremendous. The welcome to the class of 2026 was tremendous, and the work to bring the program to life was incredible. Fall sports have officially begun, so good luck to all the teams this season. And then attention all members of the class of 2023, 2024, 2025, and 2026 who would like to be a representative on the student council and class council. Nomination packets will be available beginning of the first day of school and are due no later than Friday, September 16th, 2022. And then finally, we have a welcome back party Friday, September 2nd. There's a $10 admission fee, and it's from 5 to 8 p.m. outside.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you.
Any questions for Nate? Thank you, Nate. Next up, I have the two MEA co-presidents, so I'll invite them up. I don't wish to steal their thunder, but since January, we've been negotiating a contract with them. We finished negotiations, and I know they'll talk about what happened next. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us. First, I'd like to welcome Eva Crawford. As we know, Kate Lazarovich retired last year, and so she has stepped into the co-presidency with me this year. So I want to thank her for stepping up and working with me on that. Oh, too much, sorry. We are very happy that we have been able to do all the negotiations over the past year and over this summer to get our contract put together in the MOA going through. And I'm happy to say that the MOA for the professional contract was approved by our members this past Monday. And hopefully it'll be able to be approved through school committee during the next meeting that we have in 2 weeks. And we anticipate the ESP and cafeteria contracts to begin right after approval is made on the professional contract. So we'll be getting started soon.
Good evening, everybody. I wanted to say that the students and staff over the past 2 days have done a wonderful job with navigating all the intricacies of the buses and getting the kids to their rooms. And they've really done a wonderful job. They've taken it in stride, whether it was the kindergarten got off at the wrong bus at HBB that I walked all the way outside to the other buses to get transferred, or even with the volunteers that came in, they did a great job getting all the kids to where they needed to be. So I want to say thank you to all the volunteers. I want to also say thank you to the PTA who did a wonderful job on our teachers' room down at HBB. It is wonderful. I know that MKG had theirs done last year, and that looks equally as nice. And it's just a very welcome place for us to come into and relax, have our lunch, and converse with some of our colleagues. I think that's it. Anything else that you need to say, my friend?
That's it.
That's it. That's all we have today.
Thank you, ladies. Any questions for the co-presidents? Seeing none, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we will take up the contract and have a vote on it at our next meeting. So thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to the superintendent for the superintendent's report.
All right. Thank you, Chair, members of the school committee. Tonight, I'll be covering a couple of different topics, starting with our opening days, which included 2 full days of professional development and then our opening days of school. I'll then be talking about a COVID-19 update, and then I'll be turning it over to my team to talk a little bit about the ESY summer program update and the athletics summer program update, and we'll end with a grants update. So beginning with the opening days, as I mentioned, there were 2 full days of professional development on August 29th and August 30th, this past Monday and Tuesday. All staff participated in our convocation, which occurred on the 29th, and student voice was heavily featured during the entire day. It began with the student council members lining the outside of the building here and clapping in all staff as they arrived at work for the first day of the year. I wanted to say a special thank you to student council for coming in. It was very early, 2 full days before school started. And it really set the tone for the entire year. I think that staff, teachers, everybody, I think everybody just felt welcomed and excited. It set the tone really for the rest of the afternoon, the morning and afternoon. We had a 5th grade student, Adriana Andrade, who came and recited the Pledge of Allegiance for us to get us started with our morning activities, which was also wonderful to hear literally student voice. And then I wanted to thank her also for coming. She and her mom came and participated for that portion of the morning. And then I made opening remarks to our staff, and our whole staff was treated to a surprise performance in a song called Hall of Fame, which is not an original song. Justin Pitsley and Pat Converse put this program together that included singers, dancers, and students playing their instruments on stage. It took everybody by surprise. There were not many dry eyes in the house, and it was extremely well received. I absolutely wanted to say thank you to Justin Pitsley and Pat Converse, and especially the MHS Performing Arts Program. It really was uplifting to focus on the children and all that they're able to do. I saw many early educators tell me after the fact, I knew those students, I had those students, and it just, it was very well received. So I did make opening remarks that I believe are posted online now, if not very soon. Yes, Sean's telling me, yes, they are posted online. And I shared these publicly very deliberately. I wanted the community to hear how I addressed our staff and the messages that I sent. I talked a little bit about my why for why I do this work, and then a little bit about vision for what I see for the future. And then we also had some celebrations. We celebrated teachers that achieved professional teacher status. We celebrated teachers that achieved a 20-year milestone, a 25-year milestone, including a gentleman here in our audience, Mr. Brannigan. And it was just nice to celebrate. It was a very positive message for that day. I think the staff appreciated it. We included an all-staff lunch that day. There was a union meeting, and then classroom setup time for our staff, our teachers in particular. And I know they appreciated that, and they need that before the year begins. The second day, August 30th, was a little bit more business-oriented in the sense that we had thoughtfully planned activities at multiple levels for all stakeholders. The morning sessions, we were broken up by grade level. So if you are a high school educator, you weren't necessarily with preschool educators, because we were targeting specific curriculum. We were targeting specialized programs. We were targeting positive behavioral intervention and support. And all of our paraprofessionals, our ESPs, were together for an orientation procedure and meeting that was led by Director of Special Education, Jennifer Healy. Our mid-morning session, we came together as an entire staff for a 2-hour presentation on understanding trauma-informed systems. This was the first of its kind. This presentation was put together with an outside group and under the direction of Director of Student Services, Kevin Avatable. And it was concrete information about how trauma impacts children, what it looks like in schools, in ways that we can assist, ways that we can create environments that are helpful to these students, and also maintaining an educational environment. It was so well received. I was kind of watching how people were receiving the information that I asked the speaker after the session if we could talk about having a family session for parents and caregivers, because I thought the information that he was sharing would be something our community would be interested in. So I'll be working with Mr. Avatable to bring that to light. I thought that the community would enjoy it, would benefit from it. It was very informative. There's a lot about brain science behind trauma that I thought our community would enjoy. Our afternoon sessions targeted more curriculum-specific topics, again, by grade level or building level. So we broke into, elementary silos or middle school silos. We had training on sheltered English immersion for English language learners, and there were also building-based staff meetings, which are also really important before the school year begins. Each building really does need time to cover, not just administrivia, but procedures and, larger topics before we welcome our children in. What I heard over the 2 days, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. What I am doing is soliciting ultimately a feedback session with the leadership team next week to pull together while it's still fresh in our minds and talk about what worked well, what was good, and how can we improve and make it better. Because I think that no matter how good a professional development day is, it can always improve. So that brings me to the first days of the school year. Just by way of reminder, we opened our programs from grades 1 through 12, including our postgraduate program, on August 31st. And then today, on September 1st, we welcomed our kindergarten families. Our pre-K will open on September 7th, next week on Wednesday, so we'll be able to welcome our final cohort in then. There was a lot of presence at drop-off both days by multiple members of the leadership team. I went to as many schools as I could physically be at, just so that I could watch the drop-off. I was really interested to see, how our children were approaching this year. And I'm happy to report that the same excitement I saw in our staff, I saw in our children. They were excited. They looked like they'd had, a good time over the summer. They came in kind of with all their sparkly new belongings. I saw a lot of friends hugging. It was really, in many ways, a return to a more typical school opening. And I know that so many of us were thirsty for that. I spoke with all the principals today, either today or yesterday, over the last 2 days, to just check in and make sure I wasn't missing anything for this report. And they all reported a very similar message, which was excitement around the new school year. Happy to see students, happy to see their smiling faces. Students seemed focused, ready to go. And at the elementary school, at the Berkland Elementary School, the new TLC classroom space is open and up and running, and everybody, really seems to be happy with that. So that was how the inside of the buildings ran over the last 2 days. In terms of transportation, that, we recognize that this is an ongoing area of concern. As you know, I had 2 communications with the community, and then a third one the night before school started that I had pushed out from 5 Star Bus. And before I even kind of address this topic, I first want to thank all of our families and all of our students for their patience and their support. The beginning of every year is problematic for transportation. It's a lot of coordination. But we changed bus companies for the first time since 2003. So that added a whole other degree of stress, of uncertainty, unknown. And I just want to thank the community for their support and patience, because I know it has been a trying string of days. I want the community to know that we're hearing their concerns loud and clear, and we are actively trying to address them. We've had multiple meetings. I have had multiple meetings with 5 Star Bus, along with Sarah Hickey. Chairman Young was with me for a meeting yesterday with 5 Star Bus as well. We wholeheartedly agree that communication needs to be improved. As a family, you have to be able to get in touch with 5 Star Bus when things are changed. Families need to be informed, rather. This is something that what we're going to be proposing is, not just a greater transparency and shared expectations, but ongoing and regular meetings, recognizing that updated routes are on the way. The truth is the landscape of Middleborough is tricky, and I don't say that because it's an excuse. I say that because between the landscape and the rerouting, or at least the amending of routing, we're looking at a period of time where 5 Star Bus needs time to get it right. The difference between even today and yesterday was significant in terms of how fast the routes were completed, what time kids were arriving at school, and then what time they were arriving at home. So what I'll say is that this is, certainly not what we wanted to see for our opening days, and that, we are actively working with 5 Star Bus to improve that in the days to come. I also wanted to note that the building staff, I saw building staff, administrative assistants, parent volunteers were tremendously supportive over the last 2 days, just assisting, jumping in where they could, and providing a very welcoming environment for our students. And I give our students a lot of credit for that because it can be tricky. Before I go on, do you want me to stop for questions? I've kind of been talking for a while. Do you have questions before I move on? Sure.
I know that when we put the contract through, that there was some discussion about Five Star being a little bit farther out of range here. So part of that was supposed to be that there would be a some sort of a space here where the mechanics would be able to work. Has that been addressed? Like, do they have that space in Middleborough?
Do you mean to fix to repair
It was
buses?
supposed to be within 30 minutes of Middleborough.
Right.
So the Five Star, the parent company, Student Transportation of America, has leased the property that First Student used to be on. So if you drive by the old bus yard, there's buses there again. They just say Five Star on them, not First Student. They have a plan and an agreement with the landlord for that property. They are building a maintenance facility on that property. So the buses won't be going anywhere out of town. They will be fixed right here, maintained right here in Middleborough until that building is constructed, which is January. They had to go through a whole permitting process until they have a mobile fleet for maintenance.
And then my second question was just regarding policies. I know we've had a couple of conversations regarding all the transportation policies. So maybe perhaps since there's a new company, we should revisit that through a policy subcommittee meeting probably as soon as possible.
When we had a conversation with Five Star, I mean, I want to give Five Star a little bit of time to go over where they're at. We talked about sending over existing policies to them sometime in October for them to review and give feedback on, because it also made sense for them to look at it and tell us what they would view as problematic and what areas. They gave us some areas already to review, and we've agreed to. I will say this about Five Star. The one thing I was appreciative of, the superintendent and I had another meeting that day. She had sent an email that morning asking them if we could meet. If they wanted to, we could meet virtually, obviously. And they said we could meet at 10 o'clock. The operations manager for the company is there and a couple of other people. And it just so happened our meeting was at 10, so we pushed it to 11. And they came right over and spent probably a good hour and a half with myself, the superintendent, Sarah. They did, I will say this, it wasn't an excuse, but there was some, in my mind, serious concerns about how information was transferred from the other company. I don't know how to put this as delicately as I can. They left off 400 students in the transfer from the old company to the new company.
Okay.
So there were some serious issues and so it's part of what we've talked about is making sure we get, we're holding those lists every year. And so that we have them too. And so, part of it is looking at how we do that.
Okay.
Again, if you, go back to from 2013, how we were running, how having the same company and doing the same things over and over again, things get easy and get sort of lax from that perspective. So there'll be a lot of that we'll be talking about. And so, yes.
Mr. Chair, I'd also like to ask that we, at least regarding the position that the superintendent holds as far as bus drivers go, that policy is very clear to everyone and that drivers are understanding that, because I've done some research myself and I'm seeing quite a few towns around us that are allowing it. So I think it needs to just be clear whichever way we're going, why we're not going that way, and that people understand in the community why we have a policy that we have. So I think that should happen probably as soon as possible, I think, for the community to understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my last slide is actually on the COVID-19 update. And what I wanted to address tonight, COVID-19 update has been a line item on the school committee agenda for every single meeting, I think, for the last 2.5 years. What I can tell you and what the commissioner of DESE shared with superintendents in August was that ultimately DESE and DPH guidance has not significantly changed since the spring of 2022, or really when schools closed in June. And while MPS will continue to follow that guidance from DESE and DPH, there's really been a major shift in the sense that there's no more data collection on positive cases. There's no close contact tracing, no required testing programs in school, and no formal mask requirements, with the exception of during time in school health offices. So I explained this in a communication that I had sent out to families before the school year began. But what I would be proposing is revamping this portion of the website to direct families to town and state information relative to COVID-19. I certainly have no desire to not share information with the community, but the best sources for that information at this point will be through the town of Middleborough and then the state of Massachusetts. What I'm suggesting, or what I'd like to do, is remove the dashboard and the case counts at this point, because these systems are not really up and running. I hadn't removed them because I wanted to bring this to the committee tonight and get feedback from all of you. And then should there be a significant spike in COVID cases, which in my mind is, anything over 20 cases, really. If it gets to that point, I would certainly resume COVID updates. I'm not unwilling to address that, but I really would like to see us return to the business of what we do each time at our meetings. COVID updates would be provided if there's any new guidance or any change in circumstances. I'm not, as I said, I'm not unwilling to address it. I don't deny its place in what we do. I just would like us to focus on the educational topics. And as I shared in my newsletter, anyone who wants to wear a mask or PPE would certainly be supported anywhere in our district. We would continue and welcome that practice. It's just not in a mandatory or school committee policy-based way. So any questions on that or any feedback you have for me before I take those steps? Okay, so with that, I will move to the next item, which is our ESY summer program update, and I'll turn it over to Director Jennifer Healy.
Thank you. I hope that you've all had a wonderful summer. I myself have had a busy summer, taking over as director on July 1st. And during that time, the extended school year program was just opening. So a lot of my summer was spent really getting to know this program a little bit deeper, overseeing it, and getting to know the staff as well. So I'm proud to present some information for you on what our summer programming looked like. So I think it's probably important to talk about the purpose of this program. I think some people may know, but others may not be aware of the purpose of extended school year programming. It is a specialized program designed for students to prevent substantial regression. So we look at our students and make sure that over these lapse of time and instruction that they are not regressing in skill set, that the skills that they have mastered, they continue to show growth on. If we are concerned about the recoupment of skill, then we would take that data and they would potentially qualify for extended school year services. That recommendation comes from a team meeting. So it would be a collection of data. It would be a conversation with your team. And then if students are recommended for extended school year services, it's really dependent on what they need. We have a full program that spans 6 weeks. 4 days a week, 4 hours a day of full academics, extracurricular activities, and social related service. We also have tutoring services for academic areas, counseling services, and then social skills support. We also have a flexible model for our tutoring and related service. This is something that came out of the COVID-19 pandemic that actually was a silver lining. We found that this flexible model for providing service actually worked well with families. Some families preferred to do virtual and hybrid sessions of tutoring. and it helped for availability for students as well. And some we know that they prefer and they do better in an in-person setting. So we also had that as an option. This year in ESY, we had 2 coordinators, Wendy Younglis and Patricia Ferretti. Wendy, this was her first year as an ESY coordinator. During the school year and in previous years to this, she is a member of the behavior department as a registered behavior technician. So Wendy came to this program with a lot of background in student behavior, behavior incentive planning, and that really added to the robust services that we could provide during the summer months. Patricia Ferretti has been the ESY coordinator for 7 years. And during the school year, she is a special education teacher for the pre-K population. So again, the combination of the 2 skill sets were really beneficial to our students and our staff. It allowed for a more singular focus for each one of them to kind of take these roles and merge them and also spread themselves more effectively throughout the building so that staff felt like they had the support of a coordinator. So we did, the PPS department conducted an ESY program review last school year. And there was data and information collected from staff, from families. And through that information, we were able to see that there were several recommendations that came out of that report. One of those recommendations was the need for more enrichment activities. So the whole purpose of the program is to maintain skills, but we also recognize that it is summer and these students do require some enriching activities to enjoy. We wanted to make sure these activities didn't take from the academics or the maintenance of skill, but rather added to that experience. And so we were able to embed some of those this school year. We were working with 2 school year employees, Miss Katie Iveson and Miss Tala Wonderler Selby, both from the Early Childhood Center, who we were fortunate enough to have come in and do bi-weekly classes with our students in music and in arts. So students were able to use their auditory and visual skills to paint, draw, sing, create, and really enjoy each other and feel that connection. So we were very thankful to have them both, and we're hoping that they would be interested or more would be interested in participating next year. We can kind of grow these different categories of activities. We were also able to bring in a guest presentation through the Abilities Rec Company. They do a Drums Alive program for students. I gave you sort of the background of Abilities Rec right there, straight from their website. They are an inclusive program, and they're created to offer some different unique activities that really specialize for students with disabilities and autism. And so the Drums Alive activity is a very physical activity using music, stability balls, drumsticks, and it is an exercise that connects your brain and your body together using music. So it's a very cognitive process, and the kids absolutely adored it. We're hoping to have, again, more of these experiences, but that was the first step in the right direction to adding some enrichment to our programming. Our high school programming continued some activities that they've done in the past that we've found to be fruitful. We have a partnership with Wellspring Farm Learning Center in Rochester, and they are a therapeutic farm that we work with through Tempest Unlimited. We are fortunate enough to have a partnership with them that we secure every year, and students really are engaged when they are on the campus of Wellspring. They are able to ride, brush, feed animals. They are able to use the grounds for hiking, and they are also able to learn some light yard farm work. We're not letting them do too much heavy lifting over there, but they are learning to do some of those different skills. We have our high school go there primarily because during the school year, this is the group that is familiar with that campus, and some of our other enrichment activities were less age appropriate. So we wanted to have something that spoke a little bit to our older population. In addition to Wellspring, our high schoolers also were able to utilize the MHS fitness space again this year. So they traveled over midday to utilize the weight equipment, to use the cardio equipment, and it really helps embed some really healthy living habits for our students who are soon to be adults and needing to build exercise into their routine to maintain health and wellness. Another recommendation that came out of the ESY program review was a need for increased family communication, and that was direct feedback from families that provided that information for the report. And so we decided to do a weekly s'more letter that came out to families. It was a message not only from the two coordinators, but it gave an overview of what happened in each of the 8 classrooms within the full program itself, and it would give an update on things to come for the following week. I think that families really felt that that was more engaging for them, that they knew what was expected, they could prepare their children, and it also provided some pictures for them so that they could see the good work that was being done during the week. We also continued to use personal communication logs, emails, phone calls for communication purposes, which we have done in the past. And something new this year, we also increased our family engagement by having an end of summer student showcase, which I'll show you on the next slide here. Families were welcomed on August 11th, which was the last day of the program, to walk through a gallery of art set up at the Early Childhood Center. Students had worked really hard to create this artwork for their families, and it was all displayed really nicely. Families got to preview a slideshow documenting all 6 weeks of fun and engagement, and the students really enjoyed the slideshow presentation. Seeing themselves up on the screen was exciting. And I just have a couple more slides so you can see some of the student work that we're really proud of. So while the program was wonderful and we are hopeful to continue some of the things that we did this summer, there are always goals and ways to improve for next year. Some other recommendations that came out of the extended school year review were things that of larger need and larger planning. So things that we're looking forward to for next summer. One of those being the high school and postgraduate classroom. We're finding that some of the experiences, albeit we're able to have them go to Wellspring Farms and engage in the fitness space, are not always as engaging for our older population in the Early Childhood Center. They are working on academics, but we want to give them some enrichment too. And we want to make it meaningful for these students who are soon to be adults and soon to be independent, contributing members of our society. So we're reconsidering kind of what their schedule looks like, whether or not it is appropriate to schedule them in a different capacity, and also looking to increase their vocational opportunities and the partnership within the community. We had a lot of vocational opportunities prior to the pandemic, and unfortunately, when the world shut down, so did the community, and so did our access to having students do some of these vocational partnerships. So we are continuing to build back our list of community places where we can go and work and learn. And so that's coming, but we're hopeful that we can also embed that into the extended school year program, because sometimes that stops for the summer months. We're also looking to engage with our state agency partnerships. Oftentimes this also happens during the school year, but it stops during the summer months. We work closely with the Massachusetts Rehab Commission, Tempest, which is a vendor through Mass Rehab Commission, and the PREETS program during the school year. These are state agencies that can provide different types of training, such as career readiness, vocational training, and independent living skills, things of that nature. And they will often do sort of mini courses on different experiences, travel training, job preparedness. So looking to see if we are able to engage in that over the summer as well. And then also looking at family engagement opportunities. while we worked hard to communicate and bring families into the building at the end of the program, we also are looking to present out resources for our families. Sometimes during the school year, families are so engaged with what's going on with their students every day at school that there isn't enough time to really kind of think ahead and future plan. So we're thinking that the summer months would be a great time to target some time for families to come in and talk about different resources that they can access, talk about transition planning for students over the age of 14, and then talking about students aging out and transitioning into adulthood. These are heavy, large topics that sometimes during the school year get missed because you're in the hustle and bustle. So we're thinking that maybe over the summer, tying it in with the extended school year program would be beneficial to all. Again, linkage to state agencies over the summer, and then providing resources for families to access during those weeks when ESY is not in session. So we do have a couple weeks at the end of August where students are not in school. And so that does pose some risk, albeit they've had their 6 weeks of maintenance of skill, but it does pose some risk of regression. So providing different resources for families to engage with for those 2 weeks at home to keep students kind of engaged in learning and ready to come back strong would be not a bad idea either. So things that we're looking forward to working on this year so that we can potentially embed them into our programming for next. And that is it for me. Any questions?
Any questions from Ms. Healy? Thank you, Jen. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and with that, I'll turn to the athletics summer program update with Ryan Sylvia.
While Ryan's coming to the podium, I do want to mention that the principal sent me a note, and tomorrow's rally is sponsored by the Pierce trustees. So we did want to thank the Pierce trustees. They do a lot of good work in this town, and we appreciate their offer to support the speaker at tomorrow's rally. So we did want to make that comment. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and school committee members, superintendent. I have a summer athletic clinics update for you tonight. So we had a really successful program. I do want to reiterate the excitement of all the students, though, as from an athletic standpoint. It's like it's the first time in over 2 years that we've actually started issuing locks for lockers, and we're using the locker rooms. It's not just like bring your bag and then go back out. So it's been great to see the past few days and all through preseason. But the summer athletic clinics, we offered. It was the highest participation we've had since its inception in 2018. More than doubled what we had last year in participation. We had 10 clinics, 285 student participants, and 22 coaches just in the weekly sport clinics. Those 10 clinics, 3 of them ran for 6 to 8 weeks throughout the entire summer. Probably the strength and conditioning and endurance running program were the 2 most popular. And we also had a field hockey clinic that ran all week long. All summer long, 2 days a week. The rest of those 7 clinics were 4-day clinics in youth basketball, both girls and boys, tennis, softball, volleyball, co-ed soccer, and wrestling. So huge success. Students had a chance to interact with the head coaches and assistant coaches at the high school level. All of those programs were geared towards students entering grades 3 through 9, with most of them focusing on the middle school grades, students entering 6 through 9. The new aspect of this program this summer was 2 leagues that we ran. We ran a girls basketball summer league with 8 schools from surrounding towns, 79 participants, and a 7v7 football league with 8 schools and 164 participants. And it was a great opportunity for our students to participate in these training opportunities in the summer, which in years past, when we didn't really have a facility that we could host, we're traveling, all around the region to train in these summer clinics, basically, where this year we were able to host. The fee structure for the clinics, we adopted a individual cap and family cap fee structure. So families with multiple children in the program did not have to pay a fee for every single clinic that they registered for. So it was very similar to the user fee structure that we use for regular athletic seasons, but the fee structure is independent from the regular fall, winter, and spring athletic seasons. The program is not intended to make money for the athletic program, but if there's any surplus after we pay out all of our expenses, anything that we did collect in fees goes right back to the athletics revolving account, which goes back to the student athletes of the Middleborough Public Schools and whatever we might need, whether it be equipment, uniforms, officials' fees, and things like that. Let's see if I had any other notes here. That's really all I had, other than basically with the pandemic mostly behind us. I expect these programs to continue to grow. I think we'll offer more. We'll have higher participation rates and probably additional sport clinics as long as we have the facility to sustain it. So,
Thank you, Mr. Sylvia. Any questions?
Ryan, is there anything that you're not currently running, be it grade-wise or program, that in the future you'd like to see yourself run?
So we do each year. We've offered a few different, few other clinics, and if we don't get the numbers to sustain a full clinic, then we have end up canceling those, unfortunately. So we've really been pushing lacrosse, boys and girls lacrosse. We've really been pushing wrestling, which we actually had a clinic this year. Any of those sports that we just have low numbers in. But really, the way we operate with this program is I put it out to all of our head coaches, and I give them the opportunity to take the lead on running a summer program. And some of them take it in a different direction, or some of them aren't able to do it in certain years. So really, I'd like to offer as many athletic opportunities. We've offered swimming and diving in the past, but because we were anticipating some pool renovations, we weren't able to do that. So any sport that we offer at the middle school or high school, I'm open to offering in the summer.
I guess the other question I have too is, given what I'm thinking of off the top of my head is like the tennis courts. I know part of the joy of this program for me is you get kids making money during the summer by helping out and helping coach to some extent too. Is there a possibility, for example, that some of those kids can help teach adults later that evening tennis or something like that?
I don't see why not. I mean, absolutely. There's opportunities there. I mean, with the facility we have, I think there's just so much opportunity to extend the program to in all different ways. I mean, we've really targeted kind of an elementary age group, but there's definitely ways to extend it and create programs that are going to go longer than just 4 days or just 1 week or throughout the entire summer.
Great. I mean, because that's part of like what we've always, from the very beginning, envisioned what this building would be, an opportunity to bring people in here all year round and even at evening, and bring other, adults in the community so they can enjoy the building and the facilities as much as everybody else.
Yeah, we've seen the tennis courts basically as soon as they opened.
And the track.
And the track. We've seen use from the public. And not just students. I mean, it's a lot of adults out there too.
Great. Any other questions for Ryan? Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least is our grants update from Mrs. Sarah Hickey.
Thank you, Superintendent Lyons, Chairman Young, and school committee members. For those of you that have been on the school committee for a while, and for those of you that have been watching us for a while, the conversation about grants is going to change. I wanted to give you a little background about that. There was a considerable amount of money that came from the federal government through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to all schools in the country, or all schools in the state, over the past few years. And part of the ESSER funding that we've talked about, along with the funding comes the auditing of the funding and how we've used the money. And one of the things that the federal government told DESE over the past year is that the grant manuals that we as Middleborough Public Schools and many, many, many school districts in the state, the manuals weren't in compliance with the federal guidelines for how grants were used. And so I embarked over the past year on a rewrite of the federal grants manual. It was submitted to the state in July and approved. And so, but part of the manual is we're going to have a little more discussion about grants at school committee meetings. So there are two different types of grants that we're going to be talking about. We get entitlement grants, and those are literally the word things we are entitled to have. So for example, the Individuals with Disability Educational Act says that there's money and it will go to Middleborough, and it's just money we will get every year. So there's a number of entitlement grants, and there are also competitive grants. The competitive grants, for example, the high quality summer learning grant that I applied for back in the spring, that was something that the money was available. We put, Dr. Markulitis and I put together a plan, submitted it, and the state awarded us money over other people that had applied. So I had it included in the Dropbox, the page from the Department of Education that has the allocations for our entitlement grants for this year. So our Fund Code 262 grant, which is the Early Childhood Special Education grant, we were allocated $23,246. The 240 grant, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act grant, we were allocated $906,447. The Fund Code 305, which is Title I, Part A, we were allocated $568,982. Fund Code 140, which is Title II, Part A, for supporting effective instruction, we were allocated $75,309. Fund Code 309, which is Title IV, Part A, for student support and academic enrichment, we were allocated $36,511 for a total of $1,610,495 in entitlement grants. So where we are right now in the process with these grants, the state has told us how much we're going to get, but we still have to go through the process of writing the grants, submitting the grants, the grant gets approved, and then we can start spending the money once that process has gone through. But now the step that has to be added in is the school committee accepting the grants and approving the grants. In addition to these entitlement grants, I do want to mention, even though I spoke about this back in the spring, the High Quality Summer Learning Grant, which was a competitive grant. In addition to that, our Director of Student Services, Kevin Avatabli, had applied for a competitive grant to be used for social emotional learning and mental health. It is a continuation of a grant that he and Superintendent Lyons applied for last year, and we were awarded that competitive grant for $50,000. So I seek your approval in accepting these monies.
One adjustment, there was also the health grant. Paula Magnasco, our coordinator of nursing, procured additional funding. And I believe that's operative this school year as well.
I wasn't aware that it was new and different than what we had from last year that's carried over. I know
Right.
we had carryover funds. I haven't seen
That it's
additional
new this year. Okay.
So but
that's
we'll
that's-
talk about it when it comes. We'll have fun grants night with Sarah for a little bit every.
Well, that important note is that if you don't spend a grant in the year that it's given to you, you actually can, for most grants, roll over into a subsequent year. Because sometimes when it rains, it pours. You'll have lots of grants and then years that will be lean. What Ms. Hickey just represented is actually a decrease in the number of grants we had just last fiscal year. So just sort of keep that in your file of information.
Is there a breakdown
Of the 900,000 for the special education and the 500,000 for the other, is there more of a breakdown for the committee so that we can see exactly sort of where those monies are going?
So what you're asked, so there is, so that's actually the grant application process. And so the $906,447 is traditionally, that is a special education grant. And Jen Healy and I are meeting to allocate that. We did talk in budget subcommittee
Right.
last year, and with the budget last year, that we moved a lot of staff salaries out of that grant, and we're moving tuitions into that grant. But that grant hasn't been divided up into, there's essentially, we can pay administrators, teachers, paraprofessionals, we can pay stipends, we can pay benefits, retirement benefits, supplies, contractual services, or travel. Those are all the categories that we can spend a grant on. And Jen and I will be meeting and dividing up the grant. Actually, she'll be dividing up the grant. I just make sure the numbers add up. And then with the Title I, Title II, and Title IV grant, I have already met with Dr. Markulitis. We're actually meeting again tomorrow to finish up that, the allocations for that grant.
So once it's done, people will have access to where each money was spent.
Correct.
Okay.
I was going to say the short answer to that is, so that's just the total grant. It will then get divided into categories before it is filed, and it'll be filed under that. It would be at that time that you could see, exactly how that's allocated.
Thank you.
But
Sure.
it would, it would be better to talk about it once it's approved by the state.
Right.
So for example, we had our Title II grant last year. When it was submitted, our federal grants liaison said, no, you can't spend this amount of money on that thing. And then we had to reallocate and resubmit.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Do you need a vote to accept these grants so you can process?
If we could,
Okay.
I'd appreciate it.
Chair will entertain a motion to accept the grants listed tonight so that the schools can begin the process. Do I hear a second? Second. Discussion. Hearing none. Anyone in the audience have any questions? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will add that we have hired a grant specialist, and she begins working with me on Tuesday. And so we will be actively seeking the competitive grants. So hopefully you'll be hearing more and more about grants as people give us money.
That
Give our
completes my
students.
report for this evening. Thank you, Mrs. Hickey.
Thank you very much. Hold on one second. Now I just got to check to that piece. Next item on our agenda is MSBA. Did you want to say anything about your first meeting?
Sure, I did. I believe that was last week.
Yes.
It was last week. I attended my very first MSBA meeting. I was very happy to see a familiar face in former Superintendent Lynch, who is our community at-large member. I was joined by Paul Brannigan, Sarah Hickey, and what we were talking about in that meeting was the near completion of this project. Some concern about the landscaping, given the drought and what's happened to some of the new installations because of the lack of water, how we're going to be tackling that. Chrissy Murphy was there to present very comprehensively on sort of where we're at and at what percentage completion and on which item. It was extremely informative, and I even got to take a trip to the annex to be formally sworn in by the town clerk, Allison Ferreira. So I'll be at that meeting each time, and anytime you want an update, I'd be happy to provide it. There was one other item they talked about, which was the level of kind of environmental friendliness of the project. And we are between that silver. We're very near the gold standard. There's I think bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And you have to have minimally a silver standing to get your money from MSBA. But we are nearing that gold standard. So I think there's going to be a push for us to have that categorization for its environmentally conscious efforts.
I would add that we have a landscape architect who's, I would say, is a very interesting person. Paul and I have been here when he has come by and thought the wrong blades of grass were planted into the area. He is a stickler for details and over again has pushed contractors to make sure that they're working to his specifications, which are a pretty high line. I would also remind the committee that although the project is over in time, it is still extremely under budget, which we are extraordinarily proud of. Any questions about the MSBA? Also on the agenda, I put down just a reminder that the MASS and MASC conference is November 2nd through 5th. If you can go, please just let us know and we will sign you up. Chair will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda. Do I hear a second? The consent agenda for discussion purposes contains meeting minutes of May 19th and warrants. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I received a message regarding a fundraiser that had not been put on the agenda. I don't know if that's going to hold them up for that. It was for,
I don't think any fundraisers are being held up.
okay,
I know fundraisers are being looked at as a group by administration to make sure, as you can imagine, that fundraisers sort of run in a way that families don't have lots and lots of fundraisers
Sure.
in different areas at the same time. And so that's the one thing I'd say about, we usually get them early, but it's just a process of having the administration look at them and sort of make sure that there's a flow to
yeah, that's
everybody.
fine. She just mentioned that it wasn't on there and she got a little nervous. So I just wanted to make sure I brought it
No
up.
problem. And to be honest with you, is it a PTA fundraiser?
Mhm.
So we don't generally approve PTA fundraisers. They're just on our agenda to know about.
Right.
Okay.
Perfect.
With that, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
Do I hear a second?
second.
Discussion?
Are we going into?
We're not going into executive session because I have some, we will have an executive session planned for next meeting. I'll have more information and go from there with everybody.
All right.
And like I said, part of next meeting, we will take up the teacher's contract. You will all see it and we'll all vote on it. And we'll go from there. With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.